Hello, welcome to Self Love Sundays. I am Monique R. Pagan, your emotional eating coach. Thank you so much to the replay viewers who are watching. Make sure you type hashtag replay in the comments below so that I know that you were here. Thank you so much to those of you who are joining me live. I greatly appreciate your time. And today we are talking about how to recognize emotional eating. I think this topic is so important because for so long in my journey, I didn't realize that I was emotionally eating. And I got this really great client question, and she asked, what is the difference between emotional eating and just loving food? Like, this is such a good question because for so long in my journey, I was like, I just love sugar. I am a sugar addict. I love sweet food. I have a sweet tooth. But before I tell you what I shared with her, did you know that we all emotionally eat sometimes? Let's just sit with that for a second, because this was the very thing that kind of freed me up. It like helped me release some shame, helped me release some guilt, because I was like, what? I'm not alone. You are not alone. I am here with you. Right? We all emotionally eat sometimes. And what I shared with her was that it becomes a problem when we emotionally eat consistently and chronically. And it's interfering with our well being, it's interfering with our life. Now, if we're just loving food, that means we're sitting with our food, we're experiencing the food. Like, eating food is such an intimate experience. We're sitting with it, we see the food, we smell the food, we might even hear the food if it's like a sizzling steak. We taste the food, we feel the food, we feel the texture in our mouths, we feel it go down into our stomachs. Like, it's an intimate experience. And if you're really eating food for pleasure, and if you're loving the food, that means you're mindfully eating. And that also means you won't overeat on the food, right? I see I have some comments here. Let's see who's in the room. Neal is here. Hey, Neal. Jen is here. What's up, girl? Neal is like, I'm a foodie. Okay, I'm glad that you know. And Jen is like, great question, right? It is such a great question. I'm glad that you thought so too. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to emotionally eat. It means that you're eating food for a purpose other than nourishment, other than satiation, other than just getting nutrients. It means that you're using food as a coping mechanism to avoid like the difficult emotions. It means you're using food as a tool to self-soothe. And this one I get so much. That's why they call it comfort food, because it goes into our bellies. It tastes so good. We overeat on it. And then like all the blood rushes down into our bellies and warms our bellies up. Makes us feel so good. And the reason why that happens, why it makes us feel good, is because our body is kicking out of fight and flight mode and into rest and digest mode. It's like, there's so much food here. We definitely have to like do something about this. We have to digest this food. We have to relax this person. And that's why we have like the itis at the end, because our body is working so hard to digest all of this food that we just ate. Okay. We also use food to fill a void or to feel some sense of control. And I will say that, feeling a sense of control can not just look like binging out on food, but it can also look like restricting food. Oh, I can't control what's outside of me. I can't control what's happening at work. I can't control what's happening in my relationship or whatever, but I can control what I put in my food and in my mouth, not in my food. I can control what I put in my mouth. And sometimes that also looks like restricting. Oh, I ate too much of this today, but tomorrow I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to go on like a little fast. That's also feeling a sense of control. But in actuality, we're out of control. And that's why I say sense of control. I see that Kayla's here. Hey, love. Good to see you here. Thank you so much for being here. So now that we understand what it means to emotionally eat, I want to share with you some ways you can recognize if you're emotionally eating throughout the day. Okay, so number one, you're not eating when you're hungry. If you're reaching for food and you're not hungry, it could be for emotional reasons. What does hunger feel like? It's in your body. You feel it in your stomach. It gradually comes up. It's not like all of a sudden I'm hungry. You feel like you're hungry, and then you feel more hungry, and then you feel more hungry, and then you get hangry, right? And you might also have other symptoms. Like you might also have brain fog. You might also have a headache. Those are physical hunger cues, okay? Number two, your cravings come abruptly. They come immediately, right? Instantaneously. All of a sudden, poof, I want some food. Number three, your cravings are in your mind, not in your body, not in your belly, all in your mind. Okay? Number four, you crave specific foods. You know exactly what you want. Because if you were actually hungry, a wide variety of foods would satisfy you, right? And I have a little story to tell you. And if you have followed me for some time, you've heard this story before. But there was one day I called my mom and I wanted to vent. However, the conversation didn't really go the way that I planned. It wasn't a bad conversation. It just didn't go the way that I needed it to go or I wanted it to go. And so as soon as I hung up the phone, I was like, I want some chocolate. I wasn't hungry. It came abruptly. It came in my mind, and I knew exactly what I wanted, some chocolate. And at that time in my journey, I was really tuning into my hunger, to my triggers. What triggered me to reach for food? What triggered me to reach for the sweets? And I guess it was kind of easy for me too, because I knew that my trip up was the sugar. So anytime I crave sugar, I always ask myself, what just happened? Right? And I asked myself, what just happened? And I'll let you know what happened later on. Okay. Number 5, it feels insatiable. Have you ever gone into the kitchen and you're like, I am so hungry. And you eat this, it's like, I didn't really want that. And you eat this and like, that didn't satisfy me. And then you eat this and like, that's not it. Maybe you're not hungry for food. That's an emotional hunger cue. It's not a physical hunger cue. Number 6, it's followed by guilt and shame. So many times, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the broadcast, I would have guilt and shame for eating the things. Why did I eat that? I should have more willpower. Da 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 da. Like all of the guilt, all of the shame. Shame could also come up in a way like this. I'm going to eat this food when I'm out at a restaurant with these people. I'm going to pretend that I eat so healthy, and then I go back home and I binge out on an bag of Oreos. I'm so guilty of that. I've done that before. Okay. Thank you for freedom right now. But I have done that before. Now, I want to also just insert here that emotional eating doesn't look like a big binge. It can look like snacking throughout the day. It looks differently for everyone. Okay. There's a spectrum. It's not just like you plan this huge feast. And like for me, it was more so snacking throughout the day, eating past my full cue, things of that nature. And number 7, it causes you to disconnect from yourself. I did not realize that when I was asking my mom, or when I wanted my mom to show up for me, that I was asking her of something and I felt a disconnection. Therefore, I craved the sugar. Because that's what I learned. I felt disconnected from her. And so I craved the sugar. And that also caused me to disconnect from myself, to disconnect disconnect from my emotions, or would have. I actually didn't eat the chocolate after I realized that at that time, but I didn't realize that I was disconnecting from myself prior to that. Yeah. And that's why I think that this question is so important, because the whole time I thought that I just was a sugar addict. I thought that I just loved the sweets. So, what is the difference between emotional eating and just loving food? What do you think now after hearing this? Do you just love the food? Are you just a foodie and experiencing, or are you experiencing emotional eating? I see that Kayla says, "Oh, good, good. I need this." I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you joined us. Neal says, "That's me with the chocolate chip cookies." hmm So Neal at first said, "I'm a foodie." Now, Neal, what are you saying now? What are you saying now? I love the honesty. I mean, I bring it raw to you anyway. I will own up to my stuff. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Because that's what I have for you today. I will wait for your questions. Neal says, depending on the day, I'll be an emotional eater. Depending on the day. Yep. Yep. I get that. I'm going to wait a few more seconds to see if anything else comes up. It definitely doesn't look the same every single day. For sure. I have like a lot of things to drink. Any questions? Do 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 do. Cheesy Monique's here, waiting on the questions. Because I know there's a delay. All right. So if you feel that you need to dig a little bit deeper, that you need to gain a little bit more awareness around this, I invite you to check out the resources up in the description of this video. One, there is a food relationship worksheet or questionnaire that you can download, put in your email, download it, and fill it out. My hope for you is that this helps you gain more awareness of when you're reaching for the food, what's triggering you. And once you fill it out, you can go throughout your day and be more aware, be more conscious, and make better decisions. Some of you, that's all you need is awareness. Some of you might think, oh, I need to dig a little bit deeper. And so if that's you, I invite you to either one, schedule a free 25-minute call with me where we can see if my Beyond the Food program is for you. It's a 4-week accelerated emotional eating program. We can see if we're a good match. We can see if this is the right time to go into that program for you. And if you're like, well, I'm not sure if I want to do a program right now, but I definitely want to work with you, I also have a rapid breakthrough session that you can sign up for. It's a 60-minute session. You bring your biggest question. We hash it out. Laser coaching. Boom, boom, boom. Yes? I see that there's a comment. Neal asks, how do you know when you're emotionally eating, and how do you stop? Yes, Neal. Well, I was planning on doing like a series of emotional eating, and I was going to get into that. But first, what I would share here is that it's all about bringing yourself into presence. That's the first step, bringing yourself into awareness. Because what's happening is that you are either living in the past, living in the future, applying the past to the future. You're not like present. So the first thing to do is to bring yourself to awareness, even if you're like really in the food, is to bring yourself into awareness. And that's when you can ask the powerful questions. And the question that I will share here today is you can ask, what am I really hungry for? What am I really hungry for? If you've already went through this checklist of knowing that it's not a physical hunger cue, knowing that the craving came abruptly. I mean, if you're like in the middle of a binge, you probably don't even know all of these things because this is where you are now. But to get yourself out, bring yourself into presence, into awareness, and ask yourself powerful questions. What am I hungry for? Because you could be not hungry for food. You can be hungry for joy, love, connection, presence, pleasure, a walk outside, a shower, to move your body and work out. So many things. This journey of healing emotional eating is all about self-love, all about self-care. But we can't have self-care without self-love. It's all about connecting back into the body and seeing ourselves for who we really are at our core. It's peeling back the layers. So, I mean, at the beginning of the journey, you're like, you got to peel back one layer and then you go deeper and then you go deeper and then you go deeper. Yes. The living in the future / past statement is intriguing. Yeah. Yep. Not many of us live in the present moment. I didn't know it could be a mental issue. Bingo. Ding, 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 ding. I feel like I need sound effects. Ding, 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 ding. Is there a way to eventually get rid of triggers? That is a great question. I feel that I have definitely worked on my triggers for sure. So I would say yes. Because, and it also depends on what the trigger is. But I think that once you're aware of your triggers, you can respond to them very differently. Very differently. And it's all about coaching your nervous system or coaching your inner child to be okay with what is the trigger, right? So if the trigger, and then becoming numb to the trigger eventually over time. And that's a great question. That's like a whole other episode that I can do. That's a great question. Thank you. Any other questions? I hope that that kind of answers your question. It's a deeper response that needs to happen to that one also. If you guys found this helpful, please share it out to your people. Share, 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 share the love. Yes, yes. Thank you again so much for being here. If there are not any questions, I just want to say that I enjoyed myself today. You all brought the fire with the questions, and I loved it. Thank you. I will see you next Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, make sure you do everything from a place of love. Bye-bye now.